Today's podcast episode is brought to you by Houdinki Insurance, a new venture partnering both Houdinki and Chubb, two industry leaders in their respective fields. Houdinki Insurance is a refreshing new way to protect the timepieces we enjoy and collect. It's a true game changer in that it was designed by watch enthusiasts for watch enthusiasts, and it makes the process of insuring your watches as simple as possible by eliminating the typical pain points that can make insuring your timepieces difficult. Stay tuned later in the episode for more information, and be sure to check out insurance.houdinki.com or download the Houdinki app on iOS or Android. Hey everyone, and welcome to the 10 and 2 podcast. I'm Kat.
And I'm Catlin.
And we're here every week talking watches, photography, adventure, and exploring the world of horology. How are you?
I am, well, first of all, I'm super excited about today's episode. But before we get into all that, I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just sold my house today. So
I know.
I'm very happy right now.
I'm so excited.
I'm
And there's
excited.
like a small part of me that's like, aw, our studio.
Our studio. We're going to have a better studio, though.
All of our studios have been inside that house. Like,
It has.
We went from fort in the dining room studio to like kind of janky upstairs studio to legit upstairs studio.
I know. I'll have to like post a progression because I had pictures from each and every one since we started.
The fort days were a lot of fun.
The 4 days were so much fun. And the 4 days might have to come back for a little bit because there's a lot of work needed for our new studio that we might be in a fort for like a couple episodes.
Just hanging out in one of Kat's closets, recording.
Yeah, pretty much.
2 years into the podcast, and we've downgraded to closet recording at all times.
Exactly. But I'm super excited, and yeah, it's kind of bittersweet. We love this house. We love the yard. It's just got an incredible yard and neighborhood, and you know, we're downsizing in a lot of ways because it's just me and my husband. We don't have any kids. We're not really planning on any kids at this point. So we don't need the amount of rooms that this house has, and that's a lot. But it is sad to see it go because we do love it. But we're getting a brand new home that's a little bit smaller, and hoping to spend more time traveling and doing other things instead of kind of keeping up with the house, and we don't have such a big responsibility. But or once we can travel, I guess. Knock on wood that may happen at the end of this year, and hopefully definitely next year. We're going somewhere. I told Jonathan, like, you know, we have these international plans. You know, we want to go to the UK and Scotland. If that doesn't happen, we're doing a big road trip. Like, we're just gonna take off and go on a road trip around the US. So yeah, we got to do something. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll still get to go across the pond.
Maybe. Hopefully. We'll see. I'm starting to get skeptical. I started out 2021 with like, I was like, oh, yes, this is, it's going to happen. And we're recording this, what's today, the 16th?
17th,
like
I think, yeah.
And oh, yeah, it is the 17th. And I'm already like, whatever. 2022 is going to be
I have noticed a change in your tone of voice because you were so optimistic. And I even told Jonathan, I was like, Catlin is like starting to be like, nope, we're not going.
Negative Nancy.
It's fine.
I think because I don't want to let my heart up.
I know. I'm the same
like,
way.
It's the sadness of it. So there's so many reasons we want to go, and I don't want to get my hopes up, I guess.
Yeah.
Try and be a realistic and an optimist at the same time.
That's tough.
We'll see. It's January. We're just going to let it go because we're not even going to start planning this until like late summer, if
really
at all. So yeah,
we'll see.
Like we're good.
We'll see.
Plenty of time.
Cross our fingers.
But before we get into today's episode, Kat, what's on your wrist today?
I am wearing my Omega Seamaster white dialed, and I wore it because we're going to talk about some Omegas on the show today. But I've also just like literally worn this all weekend. It's been really cold here, and I have it on the Bark and Jack NATO strap. And it's just, I'm not like the biggest fan of NATOs in general, but they are so nice like in the winter. And I guess you could say the same thing about leather straps, but even I think even more so than leather straps, like the NATOs are just, the nylon is super warm. You know, you can sometimes put on a leather strap and it's still cold. So it's nice and comfy. And I've been wearing basically sweaters and hoodies all weekend. So it just kind of fit the bill. I did get my new date dress and I should be wearing that. I don't know why I'm stupidly not, but we were just kind of out and about.
Because it's 10 o'clock at night. So we're not too worried about it.
Yeah. We did a little bit of hiking and I just felt like, I'll just put on the Seamaster.
Nice.
And somebody texted me or DM'd me a photo of toilet paper, like the lines in the toilet paper and my Seamaster. And I don't remember who this was, but I don't like you very much because now that is all I can freaking see in my dial.
No.
Yes.
No, it must be, I bet we could go to, so on Saturdays we post a quick wrist shot on our Instagram page. And I bet, because I remember somebody posting something saying, oh, it's the toilet paper Seamaster. And I bet it's that guy. So whoever you are, sir. No, it's
he ruined
not.
It.
Don't.
He's
no,
ruining it.
He didn't ruin. Don't let him steal your joy, Kat.
Oh, what are you wearing today?
Well, we are talking about some Omega stuff, specifically some space stuff. Yeah. So I feel obligated to wear my Moonwatch today.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited. I have it on bracelet. I haven't worn it on bracelet often lately. I have really been living for leather straps. This time of year, I really enjoy leather straps. So, but yeah, I have it on bracelet and I'm super, super excited.
Well, for those listeners that may be new to the show, your Speedmaster is not like most Speedmasters because it's kind of special.
It is. I love it, first of all. But so if you're not familiar with it, so I have a model of Speedmaster Professional that has the moon phase at the 12 o'clock. So I know Omega has the current Speedmaster with the moon phase, but it's not considered the professional label. It's larger and the moon phase is at 6 o'clock. So mine is like a mid-2000s variant. With the moon phase and the date wheel at 12 o'clock. It's still considered a Speedmaster Professional. It's still considered flight qualified, which for me was really important, but I just wanted something a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I love the symmetry of like the 4 sub-dial layout. It's so symmetrical and it has the sapphire crystal plus the exhibition case back, which is stunning.
Yeah. I really love that. I love that it's still the flight qualified Speedy. But it's something a little extra without, we're going to talk about some of the Snoopy editions. It's not the Snoopy. It's not a limited. It's just another version that you can get. That's again, just a little different. And I, as much as I love Speedmasters, I think that for me, they're a little boring and plain, just like I think of the sub, which I have so much admiration for. I think that they are kind of meant to be that way. But I love, and you've seen this with the versions of the Speedmaster that I've owned in the past. They're all like really quirky and different because I love those type of Speedies. I love the different stuff that they do. So yours is just incredible, and you could stare at those stars on it forever. It's so awesome.
I know. If I was a better watch owner, guys, I would have the reference number readily available for y'all.
We'll put it in the show notes.
I don't. And this one is actually a short reference number, and I still don't remember.
Shame on you.
But yeah, I know I'm the worst, right?
No, it's fine.
I could start I'm pretty sure I know it, but I don't want to say it in case it's wrong. No, and then somebody's going to come at me.
Oh, they will call you out.
100% call me out. So I'm just not going to mention it. But yeah, I'll put it in the show notes, and then it's usually all over Instagram somewhere. Yeah. But so today, in case you guys haven't put together, we are talking about Omega and Speedmasters, and specifically, Omega sent us a watch to review.
Wow.
For real. And I couldn't believe it. So we were able to go hands-on with the new Silver Snoopy Speedmaster. So this is kind of like Snoopy Speedmaster week, I guess.
Yeah.
So today's episode, I hear this a lot, and I kind of see this a lot where people ask, why is Snoopy on a moonwatch anyways? Like, what's the purpose of it? Why isn't, Goofy or like any other cartoon character or anything like that on
the
it?
Goofy Speedmaster? Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Oh God. Cat's ready to rewrite history and redo the NASA program.
Are you kidding me? It's a beagle. I have a beagle. It's the cutest dog. Like, who doesn't like dogs? I've said this before. If you're not a dog person, like, you're not my friend. I'm just saying.
Yikes. So before Cat alienates any more of our listeners, so we thought that we'd break this whole like Snoopy Watch down into 2 episodes. So today we're going to go over the history of the Silver Snoopy Award and the history of Omega and this award, which I'm really excited about. We get to nerd the F out, and I'm so stoked. So stoked to nerd out. And then Friday, be sure you guys tune in on Friday because we will be having our review of the new Omega Silver Snoopy.
Yeah, I'm so incredibly excited about it. Thanks, Omega, again. Just another shout out for sending it to us. And I think we've actually got one of the new Speedmasters on the way soon too, which we're incredibly excited to check out. And, I had just mentioned that I kind of always thought the Speedmaster was boring, but the new upgrades, I'm really excited to see this one because maybe this is a speedy for me. I've been waiting for the right Speedmaster. Ooh. So we'll see. I'm not making any promises, but I'm excited to check it out.
I forget who said it, but somebody sent me a DM saying something along the lines of, I needed to set you straight because of your comments last time about you not liking Speedmasters or the Moonwatch or something like that.
Oh.
And I was like, maybe she's changed. We've said this before. Like, don't hold us to what we say.
Yeah.
We change our minds, guys.
Yeah, that is completely true. Look, I have a freaking picture of a Speedmaster hanging in my wall that I've had for the last couple years. I'm a Speedmaster fan. I'm not a chronograph fan, but I do love the Speedmaster. And if there's going to be a chronograph in my collection, you bet it's going to be a Speedy for sure. I just have to wait for the right one,
The right one. Exactly.
But we're going to talk about a lot today, so I'm really excited.
Yes. Before we dive into Omega's history with NASA and with Snoopy, so why don't we just kind of break down what the Silver Snoopy Award is and how this whole thing came to be?
Absolutely. So the Snoopy Award, which a couple people might not know this, but it's actually not given to the actual astronauts. It's given from the astronauts to the NASA employees and the contractors for outstanding achievements related to human flight safety or for mission success. So basically, you did something special in the mission or for the mission, whether it was during or before, and they give you this award. I actually I really love that because I think that we as a society, we tend to idolize and celebrate the astronauts, which granted, it's totally well-deserved. They're out there doing crazy things. But I think a lot of times we forget the little guys that are here working their asses off to make sure that the missions go on safely and, nothing terribly happens. And they've been planning these things out for months and been working hard at it, and all these engineers that are part of it. So I think it's so nice that NASA does this award to recognize those people. It's just very sweet to me. And, another thing is it's less than 1% I read that, of the aerospace program that actually receives it, which I started thinking about. I was like, well, this makes sense because there's not been a ton of missions, especially in the last few years. So I guess the low numbers does kind of correlate to that. But the award is a sterling silver Snoopy lapel pin that has actually flown into space on a space shuttle mission. And so the recipient will get that. They will also get a certificate of appreciation and a commendation letter that was signed by the astronaut, which is really sweet.
Aww.
This award is not, I wouldn't say it's easy to get. I was reading through some of the criteria, and I'll go over just a couple of the things. I won't list out all the details, but you've got to significantly contribute beyond your normal work requirements. You've got to do something special, essentially. Mm-hmm. Or you've got to contribute to one of the more major cost savings or cost avoidances during the mission. Some of the other things are assisting with operational improvement that increases the efficiency or performance of the mission again. Reasons you wouldn't be able to get the award: can't be a part-time employee. Sorry, part-timers. And some upper management cannot get the award as well. Again, there's some other criteria, but basically what it all comes down to is like you've done something significant during the mission, before or during, that, you know, they recognize and that stood out. And then you can receive the award, which is really cool.
Yeah. Well, and I love that it's given by the astronauts. I think that that's a really neat aspect of it, because they're the people who are realistically most impacted by the actions of safety and things like that.
Yeah. Mission control gets them home, really. I mean, at the end of the day. And again, I think we tend to just like, we idolize the astronauts, which is incredible. These guys are heroes, no doubt. But there's so many people that are involved in it that we just don't think about. I know I certainly don't. So again, it is really nice to see them do something special like this. But that being said, let's talk about like how the collaboration started with the Apollo missions and Snoopy.
Yeah, so everything basically started with Apollo 1 when it comes down to why the Silver Snoopy Award was created. So Apollo 1 was supposed to be the first undertaking in the whole process of landing on the moon. The goal was never like for Apollo 1 to land on the moon. In fact, their mission was to actually do low orbital testing of the Apollo command and service module. And so then eventually it was all little steps to lead to the Apollo 11 mission, where we landed on the moon for the first time. Unfortunately, so the flight was originally scheduled on February 21st of 1967, and unfortunately, it never made it there. Actually, about a month earlier, on January 27th, there was a launch rehearsal at Kennedy Space Center, and a fire broke out in the cabin, which killed all 3 astronauts. You know, after an investigation and whatnot, it was determined that, you know, it's an electrical fire, but it spread really rapidly because you had all the highly combustible nylon material, plus you had high pressure, and you had a pure oxygen atmosphere in the cabin. And it was a very unfortunate circumstance because the crew, they couldn't escape out of the cabin. Yeah. The hatch on the door could not physically be opened because of all of the pressure on the inside of it. You know, so it's something that was later determined to have been avoidable. But again, you know, the whole Apollo, and I think this is one of the things that's always fascinated me about the NASA program, is it was all like the wild, wild west. Like everybody was learning something for the first time. And, you know, unfortunately, loss of life happens when you do things like that. You know,
I think also like there was this race too. There was a race to be, everyone wanted to be first. So I think that sometimes things got missed because people were just consumed with getting there and doing it instead of the safety aspect of it, which obviously we've learned our lessons, but still.
Yeah, no, exactly. Just like what you said. I mean, the whole space race with the Soviet Union. I mean, it was already, you know, NASA was already facing a lot of scrutiny because the Soviets were the first in space. They were the first to do, you know, a spacewalk. They were the first for a lot of things. And then ultimately, you know, our goal was to be first on the moon, which history later proved that we were. But yeah, exactly. And so, you know, after the reporting kind of came out and things like that, it was a really big embarrassment to NASA, and it brought a lot of controversy to the program. Crewed flights were actually suspended for 20 months because of it.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there was a lot of controversy, and I mean, it brought a little bit of shame to the program, and I think it's one of those interesting things that, you know, it could have ruined it. So after Apollo 1, the director of public affairs for the Manned Spacecraft Center, his name was Al Chop. So he reached out to the United Features Syndicate, who actually owned the rights to Snoopy. So Chop was like a really big fan of Snoopy. And at the time, Snoopy and Peanuts was such a popular comic strip, you know, during that time period. So he's actually quoted in an interview later on as saying Snoopy was a flyer, obviously referring to his popular like imagination as being Red Baron. So he follows it up by saying there's no reason he couldn't become an astronaut too, because originally they were turned down. They weren't given the rights to Snoopy as a character. So not wanting to miss that opportunity to be able to send Snoopy to space, eventually NASA was granted the rights to use Snoopy. And Schultz, who is the creator of Peanuts, he is the one who actually designed the Silver Snoopy Award. So his original sketch was Snoopy in a cute little spacesuit. He's got his little helmet on and a scarf, and he's carrying a little gearbox, which I find so adorable. And that became the Silver Snoopy Award.
Yeah. It's so freaking cute. Cute.
I know. And I just kind of, I mean, like, yeah. I guess.
It's cute and adorable.
It is. It's cute and adorable. We're bringing back cute and adorable for this episode, y'all. But yeah, so, I mean, I find it to be such a fascinating story of how, like,
yeah.
I mean, obviously you go from this tragedy and you're trying to inspire, right? Like you're trying to bring a little bit of joy back to the program. And also, you know, a big issue at the time was that you had departments who weren't close to the actual astronauts and the actual, like, the program in and of itself. They were all doing their separate things, but there was a huge lack of communication and things like that. So creating this award really kind of brought everybody together.
I totally agree. And I read that, like, Charles Schultz, you know, the creator of Charlie Brown and Snoopy, at a certain point in time, I don't know when this happened, but he didn't take any profit from them using Snoopy as a character.
Oh, wow.
He didn't want anything. He was a NASA fan. And as long as I think NASA made it exclusive that he would be the only one to draw Snoopy for them, he didn't want any other artists trying to attempt, you know, drawings and graphic designs and stuff like that. But as long as they use him, then he would do it at no cost, which, I mean, for NASA, I would do anything. I wouldn't go into space, but I would do almost anything. I'm a total chicken. But yeah, that is such a good story. And really they couldn't have picked a better character. I mean, like you said, Charlie Brown, Snoopy was just incredibly popular in the 1960s. And you know, it's just, you kind of mentioned, you know, they kind of brought or saved face for NASA in a way because of these terrible things that happened, that later on you bring the character of Snoopy and you bring some lightheartedness to NASA, because people are a little bit more maybe frightened, a little bit more scared, a little bit more skeptical about the program itself. And, you know, you bring an ease to people when you use a character that, I mean, think about it, that people weren't watching, people weren't on their computers, people didn't have social media, people were not finding out about things like we are now. We have every information at our fingertips nowadays. And at that time, there's a lot of people who didn't even have a TV in their house, but everyone, like nearly everyone, I'm sure, read a newspaper and read Charlie Brown. And you know, it's something that was incredibly accessible to so many people. And here was this character that you were seeing, and he was putting on his helmet and he was shooting off into space. And it made it relatable, I guess, in a way to a lot of people. Because I know for me, when I think of NASA, it is so far in the distance. Like, I cannot even imagine. First of all, I'm terrible at math and science. Just letting y'all know that. Like, absolutely terrible.
Same. I'm not going to be an astronaut.
Like, especially math. Like, my husband's an engineer, and he starts talking about work, and my eyes just roll back, like, every single time. What they do is just, it's just not relatable to me in any kind of way. And I think to have something like this that, you know, you love and you have so much admiration for this character that it's heartwarming. And like I said, I think it brought people a reason to support NASA at the end of the day, especially for children and for others that you know, maybe were a little bit more skeptical and just didn't know a lot about it. Yeah, Snoopy, you know, he wanted to be the first beagle on the moon, and he was.
And now a word from today's sponsor. Houdinki, the preeminent resource for all things watches, has recently announced a new venture, Houdinki Insurance. Created in partnership with Chubb, the world's premier insurer of valuable collections, Houdinki Insurance is a game changer in how you protect the watches you love. Signing up takes just a few minutes, and in most cases, you can instantly protect your watches with comprehensive insurance backed by two of the most trusted names in their industries. In most cases, you won't need independent appraisals or sales receipts, and you won't even have to speak with an agent to get your quote. The ease in which you can apply for Houdinki Insurance and get coverage makes insuring traditionally difficult timepieces, such as vintage watches, better now than ever. Not to mention the added peace of mind that comes with the appreciation protection. guaranteeing up to 150% of your watch's value up to the policy limit, ensuring fair value during an ever-changing watch market. Houdinki Insurance is available to U.S. residents in all 50 states. Visit insurance.houdinki.com or download the Houdinki app for iOS or Android to learn more and sign up today. It really makes me wonder, if something like that happened now, honestly, it would be shut down. There would be no let's refigure this out, anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that, I think the pioneering spirit was just different back then. You know what I mean? And not saying that I agree or disagree either way. Like I know that, there's a lot of caution that goes into things now and a lot of correctness that goes into things now. And I do agree with that, but it's just different. If there was, for example, the Tesla program, what is it? The SpaceX, sorry. If something were to happen, have happened on one of those shuttle launches, God forbid, then I'll guarantee it basically tanks the company and shuts everything down and that's it. It's really neat how different things were and how even after such a horrific accident, America, the world was able to kind of come together and continue to push forward with this program. It didn't have to stop, and it encouraged more safety. It encouraged people to work together for the betterment of mankind and for everybody's safety.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right. It was just a different time. It was a different time in America. And I think over time, as we've developed as a country, we've made NASA and space exploration less and less important to us. Maybe because of the failed missions, maybe, obviously it's extremely costly and we as a government just don't feel like that money needs to be spent there. I would argue that it does because this planet is, to me, not going to last forever. But I will get into that another day, not on this episode of the podcast. But I've always been a fan of space exploration. I think it's vital to our existence, and maybe someday things will change. I don't think that something like this, something like Snoopy, and I don't think that would work today. I think we as watch geeks like it, and it's a kind of a memorable thing to look at. I just don't think it's enough to make people excited about space. I mean, there's a lot of people that didn't even care about the the SpaceX launch. I mean, they're just like, whatever.
Yeah.
I think we're just kind of in a society now that everything we've done so much, it's just like, whatever. Nothing really excites people anymore. Not in the same way it used to. Like you said, we were pioneers at the time. There was we
so much
we view Instagram influencers with higher regard than astronauts. It's crazy. But let's
preach, Kat. Okay.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Apollo 13 and the Silver Snoopy Award before we start jumping into some watch stuff.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, so I know, at one point, I think it was episode 70. So this was a while ago.
70?
We talked a little bit 70. Whew. That's when we did. That was when the SpaceX launch was, because we did that whole episode on what watches we would wear to space, which was so fun. But so I figured we could do a quick recap of, how Omega even became the moon watch.
Exactly.
Because, obviously the big deal is that with this watch that we're going to be reviewing Friday is that Omega received the Snoopy Award. But so going back into how it became the moon watch, basically in the old day, I mean, it was essentially in the beginning of the space days, the wild, wild west of watches in space. Everybody just wore whatever they wanted to. It didn't matter. Watches weren't actually part of any sort of issued equipment. But when the time came for procuring equipment for the Gemini and Apollo missions, NASA did feel the need for a watch that was suitable for both training and flights. So they put Jim Reagan, who was the engineer in charge of selection and testing of chronographs, they put him in charge of finding a chronograph for the space program. There was a list of criteria for the chronographs. Like they had to be so accurate. They did need to be manually wound. Obviously, there's no gravity in space, which is why the need for manual winding was very important. You know, there were a few other criteria as well. But basically, they just kind of sent out this letter to tons of watch brands asking for them to send a watch for them to review and for them to test. Only 4 brands wound up responding. So you had Longines, who sent in the 235T, which was actually a Valjoux 72 powered movement. Rolex sent in the 6238 chronograph, also a Valjoux 72 movement. Omega, we all know at this point, sent in the Speedmaster with a 321 caliber. And Hamilton, bless their little hearts, Hamilton sent a pocket watch. And so, that was rolled out. Bless their little hearts. Poor Hamilton. I'm sure whoever was in charge at Hamilton later on was like, what the heck happened? How did we miss this opportunity? Love you, Hamilton. Do love you, Hamilton. So it came down to these 3 watches, right? And so Jim Reagan put these 3 watches through 11 of the craziest tests, y'all.
Yeah.
So these tests were high temperature, low temperature, pressure, humidity, oxygen, shock, acceleration, decompression, high pressure, vibration, and acoustic noise. I hope you guys weren't actually
I think it would be an amazingly cool job to be the person that tests the watches for this stuff.
Who just gets to like beat stuff up.
Right? Wouldn't that be so fun?
That would actually be a really cool job. Like, you know, total sidebar. You know, they had those rooms that you can pay to go into and just break things.
What?
Like to get your aggression.
What
you don't know
this?
This is a thing. I don't know that there's anything in Nashville, but I've seen it on Instagram where you can like pay to go into a room and it's full of like old TVs and glass and all sorts of stuff. You have sledgehammers and baseball bats and things like that, and you just get to break things.
Wow.
I feel like I need that right now, actually, in my life. But yeah, in general, I think it would be so cool to just be the guy who's in charge of like doing some crazy tests on stuff. Like, especially some of these tests, like high temperature and like, you know, high pressure vibrations. I just think it would be so cool. So out of the 3 watches that were left, the Rolex 6238 failed its humidity test by completely stopping the movement and then also failed the high temperature test. If I remember correctly, it failed high temperature because the hands melted, but I could be wrong. So the Longines Wittenauer, the 235T, failed the high temperature test because the crystal warped and disengaged. So the Speedmaster was the only watch that was ever able to pass all the tests. So, you know, to me, I think that this is a big deal because it's easy. And we just talked about like ambassadors and things like that, you know, last week. And I think it's easy to just assume that a brand pays for sponsoring something, right? But like, this isn't that case. Like, Omega earned it. You know what I mean? And 100%. I think that they get a lot of shit for it, you know, for milking the whole Moonwatch thing, whatever. But they earned that right to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I genuinely believe that. And you guys can come at me all you want, but it's not a paid tennis endorsement. It's not a paid golf endorsement. It's not anything like that. You know, the brand didn't, you know, pay for it. They just submitted a watch to be tested. They didn't even know anything about it.
The ultimate tool watch in my mind. I mean, yeah, it's incredible.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, on June 1st of 1965, the Speedmaster 105.003 was officially flight qualified. So, again, I just really love that story. So, you know, aside from it becoming the Moonwatch, obviously, at some point, Omega had to win or had to receive the Silver Snoopy Award, right? Because obviously there are these limited edition watches. And that really comes to Apollo 13. So first of all, like, if you don't know what we're talking about, there's a movie from the 90s. I always reference people to like, look at this to like really see why it mattered so much.
Oh my gosh,
so
who hasn't watched Apollo 13? Oof, you need to get on that.
I hear it all the time.
Really?
Also, it makes me feel old when people are like, I haven't seen it, who are clearly way younger than I am. I'm like, oh.
I feel like we watched it in school.
There are people who haven't seen it.
I'm pretty sure we did.
Probably. It sounds right.
That's Tennessee learning for you.
You know, Education.
We watch movies.
All right. So Apollo 13 was launched in 1970. It was the 7th crewed mission in the Apollo program, and it was actually the 3rd that was supposed to go and land on the moon. Unfortunately, 2 days into the mission, the oxygen tank in the service module actually exploded and caused, just irreplaceable damage. Like there was no going back, right? It even drained the fuel cell batteries, leaving only a few hours of power. So at that point, the goal, obviously, like going to the moon is shot, but the goal was to just bring them home because they had so little power, so little life support. If you watch the movie, you see all of the things that these astronauts had to go through. They had no heat control. They had no flight control. They had nothing. Absolutely nothing. Barely had communications.
Yeah.
I just find the story fascinating in general because to me, it's kind of the epitome of like the human will to live. And again, you have everybody at ground control working together to try and come up with solutions just so that these guys can have oxygen, because it got to a point where they were breathing too much carbon dioxide. And it's absolutely amazing that even under these stresses and conditions, I think one of the astronauts got a UTI at the time as well, that under these conditions, they were still able to make it home. So they wound up using the sun as their guidance. They wound up like slingshotting the moon using just a very small engine burn and just kind of using the moon's gravity to slingshot them back home. But at some point, despite the accuracy of that whole maneuver, at some point, the shuttle had drifted off its course, and the crew, again, they had no guidance system. They had nothing to tell them where they were supposed to go. But fixing that trajectory was crucial. Any deviation in that exact flight pattern would have caused the shuttle to either completely miss re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, or they would have done so at an angle that would have caused the shuttle to just burn up on re-entry. So after lots of math, so this is how I know I could never be an astronaut, all the math. So it was determined that they had to time a 14-second engine burn using only visually the line between day and night on the Earth as guidance. But this 14 seconds was critical. It had to be exactly 14 seconds. This is where the Speedmaster really kind of became the savior of this mission. Obviously, they weren't going to count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. You know what I mean? Like they needed it to be accurate. So using that Speedmaster, and actually, if you watch the Apollo 13 movie, like you could see them use it. It's really cool, especially if you're a watch fan. It's probably one of the best watch movies to watch. In all honesty.
Yeah.
But they timed that 14-second burn. They were able to enter Earth's atmosphere safety. And the Speedmaster, it wasn't Omega who was awarded the Silver Snoopy Award. It was the Speedmaster. Like they literally awarded it to the equipment that saved their lives. So, I just find it to be such a fascinating story. And again, for everybody who wants to say, oh, another limited edition, they kind of have the right to do it.
Absolutely.
In my opinion. Yeah. It's not just a golf watch or something like that. Like, it has a history to it, and they kind of earn it. But speaking of limited editions, let's talk a little bit about the watches that have come from this.
Absolutely, it's exciting because, I was looking through these earlier and trying to pick a favorite, and it's so freaking hard. But let's start with the first one. So this was the Omega Speedmaster Snoopy Award, the 3578.51. If that doesn't make any sense to you, click the link in our description and you'll go right to it. This one came out in 2003, celebrating 33 years since the first Snoopy Award in 1970. It had the Omega caliber 1861 inside. It had a Heslite glass or crystal, 42 millimeters. This one aesthetically, it looks like a normal Speedmaster, but it has Snoopy on the 9 o'clock subdial it says eyes on the stars, a little patch to it. And then Snoopy is also on the case back, just like he looks on the Snoopy Award. It's the same character, same drawing. And this one, believe it or not, this one was priced at $4,200. Crazy.
Man.
Crazy. It was 2003, so you kind of have to take that into effect. It was limited to 5,441 pieces, which is kind of a reference to the minutes and seconds that the Apollo 13 mission was, which was 142 hours, 54 minutes, and 41 seconds. So I like how Omega, and I think it's kind of cool.
That's actually cool. I didn't know that.
Oh, snap.
I went up
Catlin something about a Speedmaster. How about that? So this one came out in 2003. Again, aesthetically, it on the front of it, it looks like a Speedmaster Professional, but you got that 9 o'clock really bright blue subdial that has Snoopy in it. So it's if you're looking for a Snoopy, Speedy that is a little bit more subtle, a little bit less standoutish, this is the one for you. It also comes on the bracelet. And so it's not something that most people would immediately recognize. They'd have to kind of like really get up on your wrist. That's a good and bad thing, because while I do like it, I want all the Snoopy I can get also. So let's talk about the next one, which was in 2015, and it's got like freaking 20 numbers in the reference number here, so I'm not even going to say it. There's a big change.
But I think this is the Snoopy watch that before this newest Snoopy watch, this was the Snoopy watch of all Snoopy watches, right? Like there had only been the two at the time.
Exactly.
This is the one that I think most people are familiar with.
Yeah, for sure. This is super popular. Obviously, I really wasn't into watches in 2013 or 2003. I definitely was into watches at 2015. Like I was starting to get into watches. So this watch, this Snoopy Edition really stood out for me. And I know it definitely stood out for you. But this was to celebrate the 45th anniversary of Apollo 13. This is a completely new designed watch. So they didn't do just the normal Speedmaster Professional look. They went completely black and white, which kind of referenced the Snoopy and Charlie Brown comic strips that were in black and white for this one. And again, Snoopy is on the 9 o'clock subdial, and he has a little like comic book kind of like bubble that says failure is not an option, which is a node to I think this is a node to the Apollo 13 movie. I don't think this is actual like, I couldn't find anything where this was like an actual like NASA reference. I think this was a reference to the movie. However, on the, I guess between the, 0 and 14 seconds, it says, what can you do in 14 seconds? And that is a nod to the actual mission itself, because that was the time that it took for the astronauts to perform that mid-course correction that you were talking about earlier. But this is it's my favorite. I still think like it's so tough. I have a hard time not loving this model, because on the case back, and so there is there's a silver powder that is sprinkled on each individual case back, so none of them are exactly the same. And then you have you have Snoopy on top of that in silver, and he is exactly like how he is on the pin on the lapel, basically. I don't know why I love this so freaking much. Like it makes my soul happy when I see it. Like I love the new one. I love him flying in the air, like in the space. I love it. But this one, I don't know. This one just has my heart. It also has the 1861. Sorry, that was my dyslexia kicking in there. 1861 caliber, 42 millimeters again. Now this one has sapphire instead of Heslite. It also came on a black nylon strap. There was 1,970 pieces, obviously referencing 1970. This one, major price increase here. $7,000, which again is like not super crazy, but 2015, like that's a pretty big price jump there. That's almost, double. But and this one also sold out immediately, while the first one it took quite a while. It took quite a while because it wasn't like super popular. And, limited edition Omegas weren't like a huge thing at the time. So yeah, I know that you really like this one too, and I think this one, before the new one came out, was definitely both of our favorites. And I still think it is my favorite. I'm looking at a picture of it right now, and I love the black and white. It's the loom of Snoopy too, in the dark.
The loom, I will say, has to be like one of the coolest things ever on this one.
Good. I mean, Omegan just
and
kicked
I
ass.
love that this one actually was sold with like there was the Silver Snoopy lapel pin was included.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In, like,
that's
the box
awesome.
With this one. Yeah, it was a super cute box.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna let you take over for this last and final and third one that just came out, like a month ago, maybe? now? I guess it's been a little bit.
A few months ago by now. I think sometime in October, November.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
I'm lost still. Kat doesn't know exactly what day or time it is. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. That's that work from home life. You're not supposed to know what time or day it is.
Exactly.
But yeah, so celebrating the. Oh no, it came out in October. It came out October 5th. Because I remember Omega teased it for on Instagram one day. So in October, Omega launched what was the 50th anniversary of the Silver Snoopy Award. I am actually not going to get really in-depth into this because we are doing a whole episode on Friday about this watch and reviewing it and sharing all of our thoughts. So I'm not going to get in-depth on it. Mm-hmm. And by now, I'm sure everybody if you're nerdy enough to listen to a watch podcast, you've seen this watch. So you know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So super excited. I mean, there's definitely some very big differences between this and previous generation of the Snoopy watch. But I think that, I'm actually just not going to talk about it. Bye, y'all.
We won't talk about it at all.
But yeah, no. So super excited. Again, and we'll say this probably 10 more times. Cannot thank Omega enough for sending us one of these. And so excited. But I think that kind of covers our history lesson, right?
Yeah, I think so. We'll chat about it on Friday. So excited.
Yeah, you guys just have to wait and come back. But
Please hold.
I love for part 2.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely love this. This is one of my favorite things that we've done in a while because I love nerding out over NASA stuff. So,
same.
Definitely so much fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode too. We just, I hear it all the time, and I think that so many people just don't know the story or don't realize different parts of the story behind it. So this has been really great being able to talk about it and even do a little bit of research into it. I'm pretty familiar with a lot of it, but being able to look into some other stuff and this was
exactly fun. And I think it's a type of information that yes, we as watch geeks get really into, but if you have someone that's into space or, anything like that, into NASA, this is not to say, hey, send them to our show, but, this would be a good episode for them to listen to if they wanted to know a little bit more about, the connection between the Speedmaster and NASA and space and the Snoopy Award. And I think this is one certainly that I'll kind of tune in my husband to check into because he doesn't often listen to our episodes, I'll be honest. But I think a lot of the watch talk just tends to go over his head. And with this subject, it doesn't for a lot of people because a lot of people are interested in NASA. So I think that it's a great conversation for those folks that are not completely and utterly into watches like we are.
Awesome. Well, guys, make sure head over to our website, www.tennand2.com. We'll have links to a lot of the stuff we talked about, photos of some of the watches we only talked about 3 watches, but we'll have photos of those on the show notes, just so you guys can see which Omega watches that we're talking about. And be sure to follow us along on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at 10 and 2 Media. I don't know why. I always forget this part. Follow us at 10 and 2 Media. Subscribe over to our YouTube channel. Every now and then there's a video that gets posted that's not a podcast. And that's it. And guys, tune back in Friday. So we're super excited to share our thoughts about the Snoopy. But be sure to tune back in. And if you enjoy this episode, please share it. Like Cass said, share it with even some of your non-watch friends because I think a lot of people would find a lot of this information quite fascinating. And maybe it might get people off your back on why you're so into watches.
There you go. Always a bonus.
There you go. Always a bonus. And with that, we will talk to y'all Friday.
All right. Bye.
Bye, y'all.